I spoke my thoughts aloud, never realizing the most powerful queen in the galaxy was listening. Jace, he had always believed that humans were small, weak, and easily overlooked in a galaxy dominated by towering alien civilizations. He had grown up on the fringes of human colonies, among rusty stations and freighter ports where survival depended on skill, speed, and a willingness to do the hard work no one else wanted. He knew that most humans were dismissed as insignificant, even by their own kind, and that their voices rarely carried weight beyond the colonies. But Jace had never accepted this. He had a stubborn streak, a determination to prove that humans could matter. The day had started like any other in the sprawling docking hub. Ships of all sizes buzzed through the lanes, from massive freighters with blinking cargo lights to small transport shuttles that darted between platforms. Alien merchants shouted over the hum of engines, hawking goods that humans could barely pronounce. Jace, he moved carefully through the crowd, his short, messy brown hair falling over his forehead and his gray jumpsuit smudged with oil and grease. In his hands, he carried a set of tools that had become extensions of himself: wrenches, plasma soldering pens, diagnostic devices. Today, he had been called to repair a freighter's malfunctioning drive core, an assignment no one else dared take because the ship's alien design was notoriously temperamental. As he worked, tightening bolts and adjusting energy conduits, he muttered under his breath about the state of the galaxy. Rules, bureaucracy, endless committees, they make everything slow and stupid, he said quietly. Sparks flew from the open engine compartment, reflecting off the metallic surfaces and highlighting the grime on his hands. He didn't notice the faint shimmer of a cloaked figure observing him from across the bay. Humans rarely attracted attention in this hub, and yet the sheer audacity of his words, spoken aloud without fear, was exactly what had drawn notice. Jace, he stepped back to inspect his work, wiping sweat from his brow. The freighter's engine hummed softly, and for a moment he felt the satisfaction of a job well done. But that moment was fleeting. He sensed something unusual, a shift in the usual chaos of the station. His instincts, honed over years of survival, tingled. He glanced around, spotting movement in the shadows, figures that did not belong. The air carried a subtle tension, like the calm before a storm. A cloaked figure approached him deliberately, silent despite the noisy station. The human's heart rate quickened, but he did not panic. He had faced threats before, and this one was unusual yet not immediately violent. The figure stopped a few feet away, long robes brushing the floor, silver accents glinting under the station lights. Jace, he tightened his grip on his tools, ready to react. The presence of this figure was commanding, yet strangely measured, as if it carried knowledge of things far beyond the understanding of most beings in the station. "You are bold," the figure said, voice calm yet carrying a weight that made Jace's pulse quicken. It was not a threat, at least not immediately, but a statement that implied knowledge. "Few humans speak so freely in public, especially about forces far beyond your station." Jace, he straightened, brushing off his jumpsuit and meeting the figure's gaze with cautious curiosity. "I say what I think. People hide behind rules and nothing ever gets done. I'm just tired of waiting for someone else to fix things." His voice was steady, though the sweat on his brow betrayed the tension he felt. The figure tilted its head slightly, as if analyzing him. "And yet, here you are, your words carry risk." Most would remain silent, fearing retribution. "You have potential." "Potential for what?" Jace asked, wary but intrigued. He had spent his life working on engines, repairing ships, and surviving in conditions most humans would abandon. Recognition from anyone outside his world was rare. Recognition from someone powerful enough to command attention across systems was almost unimaginable. "To be seen," the figure replied. "To be noticed by forces that can change the course of more than a single station, more than a single colony. Few humans are given this opportunity." Jace, he swallowed hard, the weight of those words pressing on him. He had always known humans were underestimated. It was a fact he had lived with, struggled against, and used to his advantage. But being noticed by something beyond the ordinary, a presence that moved quietly through power and influence, was something entirely new. He glanced around the station, at the alien merchants, the freighters, and the busy engineers. To them, he was just another human doing routine work. But in that moment, he realized that the galaxy could see him differently, that small acts could ripple outward in ways few expected. The cloaked figure's attention was a reminder that humans were capable of more than others gave them credit for, if they dared to act boldly. "I fix what I can," Jace said finally, his voice carrying determination. "I don't have much beyond these tools, this station, and my wits, but I do what I can." The figure's presence softened slightly, as if acknowledging the truth in his words. "That is exactly what makes you valuable. Courage, creativity, and action, qualities most beings lack, even among those who wield great power. You see possibilities where others see rules. That is why you have been noticed." For a moment, Jace felt a strange mix of pride and apprehension. Recognition was one thing, responsibility another. He had survived countless mechanical failures, alien temperaments, and the unpredictability of life on the fringes. But the presence of this figure suggested a larger stage, a larger test. He was a human, small and underestimated, being drawn into something vast and dangerous. "Who are you?" he asked cautiously, his hands resting on his tools. He was ready for anything, negotiation, confrontation, or instruction. The figure's hooded head tilted slightly. "A messenger, a guide. What matters is not who I am, but what lies ahead. If you choose, your actions can ripple through the galaxy, shaping events far beyond this station. But the choice is yours." Jace, he took a deep breath, weighing the implications. He had always lived in the immediate, engines to repair, freighters to maintain, dangers to avoid. But opportunity was rarely polite, and it rarely waited. Here was a chance to step beyond the confines of expectation, to prove that humans could not only survive, but influence the course of events on a scale he had never imagined. "I don't know what's coming," he admitted, voice steady despite the tension in his chest. "But I want to try. I've spent too long waiting for someone else to act." The figure regarded him silently for a moment, then nodded, the motion almost imperceptible. "Very well. Follow the path, human. Learn what you can, act when necessary, and remember this: your courage and ingenuity are your greatest tools. You are capable of far more than you imagine." Jace, he felt a spark of anticipation, mingled with fear and determination. The station around him continued its busy rhythm, alien voices and engine hums blending into a constant background. But for the first time, the world seemed larger, and humans, small, underestimated, and often dismissed, felt capable of leaving a mark that no one could ignore. The cloaked figure turned and vanished into the crowd, leaving Jace alone with his thoughts. He looked at the freighter he had just repaired, at the tools in his hands, and then out into the docking lanes where ships waited to depart. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of dangers, yet he felt ready. Humans had survived against impossible odds before. Why not again? And so, Jace, he began a journey that would take him far beyond the familiar corridors of his station, beyond the edges of human colonies, into the heart of challenges that would test ingenuity, courage, and the very essence of what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had long underestimated them. He did not yet know what lay ahead, but he was ready to act, ready to adapt, and ready to prove that even a single human could matter in the grand tapestry of stars. The hum of the station, the glow of neon docking bays, and the distant twinkling of stars seemed to echo the promise of the future. Humans were small, yes, but Jace, he understood now that size was irrelevant. Ingenuity, courage, and action defined worth. And he was prepared to demonstrate it. The hum of the starport was constant, a low, metallic vibration that seemed to seep into every corner of the sprawling docking bays. Ships of all shapes and sizes were coming and going, some shuttles smaller than a room, some freighters massive enough to blot out the sun. Jace, he moved among them, hands greasy from engines and tools, his eyes sharp and alert. The human engineer never liked crowds, but necessity often forced him into the chaos of interstellar commerce. Today, though, he felt something different in the air, an undercurrent that pricked at the edge of his awareness. He had not realized, when he had complained aloud in the workshop yesterday, that words could travel so far. His voice had carried beyond the walls of the station, and somehow it had reached ears that belonged to beings who never overlooked such things. Lysera, she, the queen of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, had heard him. And now, without his knowledge, she was observing every move he made, intrigued by his bluntness and the raw honesty of a human unafraid to speak uncomfortable truths. Jace wiped a streak of oil from his face and glanced at the control panel in front of him. A freighter had just docked, its hull gleaming with alien inscriptions that looked like they had been scratched rather than etched. He recognized the style instantly. It belonged to a trading guild notorious for cutting corners and charging high prices for low-quality parts. He muttered under his breath, "They call that engineering. My grandmother could do better blindfolded." A small group of cloaked figures was moving near the docking ramp. At first, he thought they were typical station security, but their movements were too precise, too calculated. He felt the familiar itch of unease crawling up his spine. Something about them was wrong. Jace, he always trusted instincts, even when reason suggested caution. As he packed up his tools, one of the cloaked figures approached, moving with smooth, deliberate steps. "Engineer Jace?" a voice asked, calm and neutral. Jace turned, hands instinctively gripping his tools. "Depends on who's asking," he said, keeping his tone steady. "I represent a group interested in your talents," the figure said, bowing slightly. "There are opportunities you may find valuable." Jace narrowed his eyes. "Opportunities from strangers usually come with traps." "Thanks, but no thanks." He tried to walk away, but the figure blocked his path, raising a hand in a gesture that was both polite and commanding. "You are not aware of the attention you have drawn," the figure continued. "Your abilities have been noted. You have a reputation that precedes you, even among the most influential circles." Jace, he felt a chill. A reputation. He had done his work quietly, avoiding fame. The thought that someone powerful knew of him made his chest tighten. "And what exactly makes me so special?" he asked, voice wary but steady. "Your ingenuity, your courage, and your unpredictability. These are rare qualities, especially among humans." The figure paused, letting the words hang in the air. "They are qualities the Queen herself has taken interest in." Jace's mind froze for a second. The Queen, the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. "You're joking," he muttered, but the figure's expression remained unreadable. "You are not joking," the figure said simply. "She is watching, and she wishes to see what a human of your abilities can accomplish under controlled circumstances." Jace's first reaction was disbelief. Humans were insignificant in the galactic hierarchy. They had never been trusted with anything that mattered on a cosmic scale. And yet, here was the reality staring him in the face. The Queen, Lysera, she wanted him, for reasons he did not understand and risks he could not yet calculate. He left the docking bay, moving through the crowded streets of the station. Merchants shouted in alien tongues. Children of various species ran between legs taller than any human, and the hum of engines filled the air. Despite the chaos, Jace's mind raced, analyzing possibilities, predicting dangers, and considering escape routes. His survival depended on anticipating every move before it happened. Unseen, agents of the Queen followed him, their presence subtle, almost ghost-like. They observed the way he inspected every corner, how he recognized potential hazards and opportunities others overlooked. Every step he took, every choice he made, reinforced the Queen's belief that humans were more capable than the galaxy admitted. Later, at the edge of the station near the cargo yards, trouble found him. A group of alien operatives, hired by a rival faction, cornered him between two shipping containers. Their weapons were silent but deadly, aimed precisely at his chest. "You are the human engineer Jace," one of them said, its voice distorted by a modulator. "You have skills we require. Come with us willingly, or you will be taken by force." Jace, he assessed the situation instantly. There were 4 of them, armed and confident. But their formation was rigid, predictable. Using a metal pipe nearby, he ricocheted a crate's edge, sending it crashing into the largest operative. Sparks flew as the crate grazed a control panel, triggering a small electrical discharge. The sudden movement startled the others, giving him a fraction of a second to act. With a leap born of instinct and experience, Jace dodged a plasma blade and swung the pipe with precise force, striking another operative's shoulder joint. They staggered, giving him enough room to climb atop a container. From this elevated position, he grabbed a loose cable and yanked it, sending a nearby crate toppling onto 2 more of his attackers. The fight was brief but decisive. Jace, he didn't wait to celebrate or gloat. He ran, weaving through the cargo yard, his mind already planning the next steps. If these were the rivals of the Queen's empire, then the stakes were far higher than he had ever imagined. Back in a shadowed alley, he paused to catch his breath. His hands were scratched and his clothes smeared with grime, but he felt alive. This was the kind of challenge he thrived on, the kind that tested more than strength, tested ingenuity, foresight, and courage. Unbeknownst to him, Lysera, she observed the encounter from orbit through discreet surveillance. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, followed every move. Jace's improvisation, his refusal to panic, and his ability to turn ordinary objects into tools of survival confirmed what she had begun to suspect. Humans were not as weak or insignificant as the galaxy believed. "I underestimated them," she murmured to herself. Her advisors, a mix of aliens who had served her for centuries, nodded silently. None of them had dared challenge the traditional hierarchy, but here was a human who had done so without even knowing it. For Jace, the night ended with him perched on the edge of a quiet maintenance platform, overlooking the city lights of the starport. He did not know that his actions had already started changing perceptions far beyond his reach. He thought only of survival, of the next meal, and of finding a quiet place to rest. The galaxy's politics, he believed, were a problem for the powerful, not for an engineer scraping by. Yet in that same moment, a plan was forming in Lysera's mind. She would bring this human closer, not as a subject, but as a participant. His talent, unpredictability, and resilience could serve purposes no alien mind could fully foresee. The question was whether Jace, he would trust her, and whether he could survive the journey that lay ahead. The next morning, Jace returned to his workshop. Tools scattered across the floor, the smell of oil and metal thick in the air. He felt the familiar rhythm of creation settle in. He had work to do, engines to repair, and problems to solve. But beneath that ordinary focus, a tension lingered, a sense that unseen eyes were watching, that his every choice could ripple far beyond the walls of his small workspace. And for the first time, Jace, he understood that being human in a galaxy that dismissed humans as weak was both dangerous and extraordinary. As he tightened the final bolt on a freighter engine, he spoke aloud again, almost to himself. "I wonder what they think of me out there. Probably nothing, probably everything." Lysera, she heard him. And for the first time, she felt something rare, curiosity tinged with excitement. This human, blunt and unassuming, had captured her attention not through words of flattery, but through action, courage, and the very unpredictability that made humans human. It was not the beginning of a friendship, nor an alliance. It was something far more significant, the start of a chain reaction that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy, all sparked by the courage of one human unwilling to be invisible. And somewhere in the shadows of the docking bays, Jace's next challenge waited. Not just rivals, not just survival, but a role that could define the future of humanity in ways he could not yet imagine. Jace, he had learned to trust very few people, and now, for the first time, he was being offered a choice that could change everything. The message had come quietly, almost like a whisper in the station's comm network. A personal invitation from a high-ranking representative of Queen Lysera, she herself. The words were polite, formal, and careful, yet they carried an unmistakable weight. A human had been noticed, and a human had been chosen. At first, Jace hesitated. The galaxy was full of promises that ended in traps. No one ever offered power, recognition, or opportunity without strings attached. He had grown accustomed to the small victories of survival, to fixing engines, and solving problems that seemed impossible. To be drawn into the orbit of someone like Lysera felt dangerous in ways he could not yet quantify. But human curiosity, stubborn and unyielding, gnawed at him. He wanted to know what this was about, to see if a human could truly matter in a galaxy that dismissed them. When he arrived at the meeting point, it was nothing like he expected. The shuttle that picked him up was sleek and silent, its design elegant but functional. He noted the precision of the craft, the care in every line of its structure, and the hum of its engine that felt alive rather than mechanical. It was a small hint of what lay beyond, of the scale of the empire that had noticed him. Inside the shuttle, the representative, an alien with translucent skin and eyes that shimmered like liquid silver, greeted him. "Jace, you were brave in the cargo yard yesterday," they said. "You saw danger and you adapted. That is why the Queen wishes to speak with you directly." Jace nodded cautiously. "And if I say no?" The alien's expression did not change. "Then your life continues as it has, but the opportunity is rare. Choose wisely." He chose. Curiosity and courage outweighed fear. The shuttle lifted off silently, carrying him toward a destiny he could not yet imagine. The journey was long, and the closer they came to the Queen's flagship, the more Jace noticed the scale of her empire. Planets rotated like jewels in the distance, each one a seat of power, commerce, or control. Military ships patrolled silently, their sleek forms a reminder that Lysera's reach extended far beyond the eyes of ordinary citizens. Humans were small in comparison, but perhaps that was the point. Small things could move unpredictably, slipping between the cracks where others saw only rules and borders. When he finally arrived, the flagship was massive, far larger than any station he had worked in or seen before. Its hull reflected the stars like a mirror, and its engines glowed with an intensity that made the surrounding void shimmer. Boarding it, Jace felt a mix of awe and caution. Every step echoed with the weight of centuries of rule and the quiet expectation that humans had rarely been allowed inside such places. Lysera, she met him in a chamber that combined elegance with functionality. She was not as tall as many expected, nor did she wear the armor of a warrior, yet her presence was undeniable. Every gesture, every glance radiated control and intelligence. Jace felt the natural tension of being in the presence of someone who could decide the fate of worlds with a single thought. "You have survived situations that would have destroyed most beings," Lysera said, her voice calm but carrying authority. "You have courage, intelligence, and creativity. These are rare qualities, especially in humans." Jace, he tried to hide his surprise. He had always thought humans were underestimated, dismissed, and overlooked. To hear this from the ruler of the galaxy itself was overwhelming. "I thank you, Your Majesty," he said carefully, "but I'm just an engineer. I fix things. I don't know if I'm exceptional." Lysera's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in thought. "Exceptional is not the word I would use. Unpredictable, resourceful, bold. You do not follow patterns, and that is exactly why you are valuable. The galaxy has grown complacent. Rules, tradition, fear, they limit progress. Humans, on the other hand, often leap where others hesitate. You are proof of that." He swallowed, the weight of her words pressing on him. "So, what do you want me to do?" "I want to test you," she said simply. "Not with words or theory, but with action. You will face challenges that require thought, courage, and improvisation. How you respond will determine the role you may play in shaping the future of the galaxy." The first test came sooner than he expected. A communication alert sounded, indicating an urgent situation in a nearby sector. A rival alien coalition had attacked a supply convoy, capturing ships with human and alien crews alike. The Queen's forces had been monitoring the situation, but had been unable to respond directly. Lysera turned to Jace. "This is where your ingenuity is required. You may not have a fleet, but you have your mind, your experience, and your courage. Save what you can and learn in the process." Jace, he did not hesitate. He grabbed the nearest shuttle and launched into the void. The scene before him was chaotic. Burning ships, drifting cargo, and panic among crews who had never seen humans in positions of command. His first instinct was to analyze the environment, identify weak points in the enemy's formation, and find ways to maximize limited resources. He directed trapped ships to maneuver into positions that disrupted the attackers, using their engines to create barriers and hazards. He rigged damaged shuttles with improvised energy pulses that temporarily disabled enemy weapons. Each move was calculated, quick, and unpredictable, an improvisation that no alien tactic manual had ever prepared them for. Lysera observed from her command bridge, fascinated. The human-'s thinking was not linear, not bound by the rigid rules that alien minds often followed. Jace adapted to every change, exploited every weakness, and protected those who could not protect themselves. His actions were dangerous, yes, but they were effective. By the time the conflict ended, several enemy ships had retreated, and the convoy was largely intact. Jace returned to the flagship, exhausted but satisfied. He had not only survived the test, but had demonstrated the qualities Lysera had sought: creativity, courage, and a refusal to yield under pressure. "You exceeded expectations," Lysera said, her calm tone carrying approval. "Most would have failed. Most would have followed protocol to the letter, leaving lives and resources to chance. You adapted, and in doing so, proved that humans are more capable than many give them credit for." Jace, he felt a swell of pride, but also unease. "So what now?" he asked. "Am I in your service?" Lysera considered him for a moment, her gaze sharp. "Not service, human, partnership. You are free to leave, to continue your work as you wish." "But the galaxy is shifting, and those who can act, who can think beyond rules and fear, will shape the future. I have no doubt you will play a role in what comes next, if you choose to." He nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling in. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as insignificant, and yet here he was, standing on a flagship in the heart of an empire, recognized for his abilities in ways that other species could never imagine. The responsibility was immense, but so was the opportunity. Over the next few days, he learned more about the empire, its politics, and the scale of its influence. He met other humans who had been granted positions of trust, rare as they were, and realized that each had been chosen for qualities similar to his own: courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. The Queen's methods were subtle but effective. She did not command blindly. She observed, tested, and rewarded those who proved their worth. Yet not everything was as calm as it seemed. Rival factions, aware of the Queen's interest in a human, had begun to make moves. Spies, saboteurs, and assassins lurked in shadows, seeking to eliminate what they saw as an anomaly that threatened the established order. Jace knew survival would require more than skill with engines and machines. It would require strategy, foresight, and the human ability to improvise in ways that no other species could. One evening, as he walked along the observation deck of the flagship, staring out at the stars, he thought about how far he had come. Just a week ago, he had been a simple engineer, concerned with engines and schedules. Now, he was part of a test that could influence galactic politics. The weight of possibility pressed on him, but he felt alive in a way he had never known. Lysera appeared beside him, her presence quiet but commanding. "You are thinking too much, human," she said lightly, though her voice carried the authority of one who could end worlds. "Action is what matters. Observe, plan, but do not hesitate when the moment comes." That is the lesson humans teach themselves, often without realizing it. Adaptation and courage are your greatest tools. He smiled faintly. "I think I'm starting to understand. Humans survive because we act, because we improvise, we don't wait for permission." "Exactly," Lysera replied. "And that is why you have value, not because of your strength or your technology, but because of your mind, your choices, and your courage. Remember this: the galaxy underestimates you at its own risk." For the first time, Jace realized that being human was more than a simple matter of biology. It was a combination of unpredictability, creativity, and moral courage. These qualities had allowed him to survive, to excel, and to capture the attention of the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. The next challenge, he knew, would not be easy. Rival factions would continue to test him, to push him to his limits, but he felt ready. Human resilience, resourcefulness, and the refusal to accept impossible odds were not just survival traits. They were the reason he had been noticed, the reason Lysera had taken an interest, and perhaps the reason humans could one day shift the balance of power in the galaxy. As the stars stretched endlessly before him, he knew that his journey had only begun. The Queen had offered a test, the galaxy had offered a challenge, and humanity had offered the one thing that no other species could match: a spark of ingenuity and courage that refused to be ignored. And somewhere in the corridors of the flagship, plans were being made, strategies laid out, and eyes watched the human who dared to act when others only hesitated. Jace had survived his first trial, but he understood now that survival was only the beginning. The true measure of a human, he realized, was not in avoiding danger, but in facing it with courage, creativity, and the unwillingness to accept defeat. And he was ready to face whatever came next. The calm of the flagship was shattered one morning by alarms that blared through every corridor. Red lights bathed the decks in urgency, and automated announcements repeated a single word: "Alert! Alert!" Hostile fleet detected. He jolted upright from his workstation, tools still in hand. He had faced danger before, improvising against small rival groups and local saboteurs, but this was different. The Queen's fleet, massive and disciplined, was under attack by a coalition of alien warships, each one built to destroy with precision. He ran to the observation deck, where the expanse of space stretched endlessly. There, hundreds of ships moved in perfect formation, the attackers closing in on the flagship with lethal intent. Jace's breath caught at the scale of it. This was no simple skirmish. This was a battle that could decide the fate of the Queen's control over key sectors. He felt a rush of adrenaline, This was the moment Lysera, she had hinted at, the true test of his skills. The queen appeared at the observation window beside him, calm despite the chaos outside. "This is the moment I spoke of," she said. "The enemy believes they can overwhelm us with sheer numbers, but the outcome is not determined by numbers alone. Strategy, innovation, and courage will turn the tide. That is why you are here, Jace. Humans have a talent for what others overlook." Jace, he nodded, his mind racing. The fleet's commanders were skilled, but they were bound by protocol, by centuries of rigid strategy. He was not. He looked at the ships, the enemy's formation, and the trajectory of their attacks. Patterns emerged that others might have dismissed. He could see where gaps existed, where enemy attention was divided, and where improvisation could have the greatest effect. "Take control of the forward defense grid," Lysera instructed. "You will coordinate with our ships, but your approach may differ from their standard protocols. Use your judgment." Jace, he approached the console, hands flying over controls he had never used before, memorizing schematics in seconds. He rerouted power to shields in precise bursts, creating temporary energy barriers that deflected incoming fire while leaving openings for their fleet to counterattack. He coordinated with smaller fighter crafts, sending them on unpredictable flight paths that disrupted enemy targeting systems. The enemy seemed confident at first, their numbers overwhelming. But as Jace implemented improvised tactics, chaos crept into their ranks. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and confusion spread among them. The human's unconventional thinking, coupled with his refusal to accept hopeless odds, began to turn the battle. Lysera watched silently, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp. She had seen humans act boldly before, but this was something different. Jace's decisions were not based on fear, protocol, or rank. They were based on instinct, rapid analysis, and a deep understanding of cause and effect. He exploited what others overlooked, making the impossible possible. In the midst of the battle, a massive enemy cruiser broke through the outer defenses, aiming directly at the flagship. Its weapons charged with destructive energy capable of breaching the hull. Jace, he saw it too late to avoid conventional tactics. He gritted his teeth and scanned the consoles for options. There was one chance: an untested energy redirect system that could turn the ship's own weapon against it if used precisely. "Lysera," he called, "I need authorization to override the protocols." Her calm voice replied immediately, "Do it, human. Trust your instincts." Jace's hands moved in a blur, rerouting energy and calculating angles in real time. The cruiser fired, and for a moment it seemed inevitable that the flagship would be hit. Then, with a blinding flash, the enemy's energy turned inward, striking its own hull. The cruiser shuddered violently, systems failing one by one before breaking apart into fragments that drifted silently through space. The Queen's eyes shone with admiration. "You risked everything," she said quietly. "Most would have followed procedure, waited for orders, or avoided personal danger. You acted." Jace, he felt the weight of her words but did not pause to savor them. The battle was not over. Smaller enemy squadrons still pressed the attack, hoping to exploit any moment of distraction. Using every trick he had learned, every improvisation he could think of, he coordinated the defense, turning even minor debris into obstacles and forcing enemy ships into traps. Every success bolstered morale across the flagship, and human courage began to inspire alien crews in ways that Lysera had never expected. Hours passed. The battle raged, and Jace did not stop. He barely ate or rested, his mind focused entirely on survival and strategy. He found joy in the challenge, excitement in the improvisation, and pride in the fact that humans, underestimated and dismissed, were proving themselves capable in a galaxy that had long forgotten their potential. At one point, an alien squadron broke through the secondary defenses and attempted a direct boarding maneuver. Jace, he sprang into action, taking control of automated defense drones and using the ship's environment itself as a weapon. Cranes, conveyor belts, and emergency doors became tools of defense. The alien attackers were disoriented, unable to anticipate the human ingenuity directing their every move. In minutes, the boarding threat was neutralized. Lysera observed from above, finally stepping out of the shadows of her command bridge. She did not intervene. She did not need to. She allowed the human to act, to demonstrate what made him different from every other species she had encountered. His unpredictability, creativity, and courage had become a force that even her powerful fleet could not have relied on alone. When the final wave of enemy ships retreated, the flagship and its surrounding fleet were largely intact. Damage was present, of course, but it was manageable, minor compared to the destruction that could have been. The battle had been a success, and its victory was owed in no small part to Jace's quick thinking and refusal to yield under impossible odds. As the aftermath settled, the Queen approached him again, this time more openly. "You have shown what humans can do when given responsibility and trust," she said. "You have turned chaos into order, risk into advantage. You have reminded me of the value of courage and adaptability, qualities the galaxy often overlooks." Jace, he wiped sweat and grime from his face, exhaustion making him feel heavier than ever. "I just did what I thought would work," he said, trying to sound modest. "I didn't think it mattered in the bigger picture." "It mattered more than you realize," Lysera replied. "The galaxy is watching, whether it knows it or not. Humans, underestimated and dismissed, have proven tonight that they are capable of shaping events, of turning defeat into victory. You are a living example of that truth." The Queen's words stirred something deep within Jace. He had always believed in human resilience, in the power of thought, courage, and ingenuity. But to hear it acknowledged by the most powerful ruler in existence, it changed something inside him. Humans were small, yes. But small things, unexpected things, could tip the balance of the galaxy when wielded wisely. As the flagship moved to regroup, repairs underway, Jace, he took a moment to reflect. The battle had tested him in ways he had never imagined. Every instinct, every skill, every lesson from his past had been called upon. And yet, despite the exhaustion and the tension, he felt alive. More than that, he felt a sense of purpose that had been missing from his life. Lysera's presence remained near, a silent witness to his thoughts. "Humans are unpredictable," she said softly, almost to herself. "But in that unpredictability lies strength. Courage, creativity, and the refusal to accept limits, they are rare qualities even among the most advanced species. This human exemplifies them." Jace, he understood that the challenges would continue. Rivals would seek to exploit weakness, politics would shift like tides, and the galaxy would continue to test him in ways he could not yet imagine. But he also understood something else. Humans were underestimated at their own peril. The spark of ingenuity, the ability to act when others hesitated, and the moral courage to do what was right, these were human qualities that could not be ignored. The Queen's empire had been tested, and the galaxy had witnessed the potential of humanity. Jace, he had survived, yes, but more importantly, he had proven that humans were a force to be reckoned with. Not through sheer numbers, not through advanced technology alone, but through intellect, creativity, and courage, the very traits that made humans unique. As he looked out at the stars, watching the remnants of the enemy fleet drift into the void, he felt a quiet pride. He had acted when others would have hesitated. He had improvised when rules and protocol failed. He had faced impossible odds and survived. And in doing so, he had changed the perception of humanity in the galaxy, perhaps forever. The Queen, Lysera, she remained at his side, a calm and steady presence. "The galaxy will continue to challenge you, Jace," she said. "But remember this, your choices, your courage, and your creativity are more powerful than you know. Use them wisely." Jace, he nodded, feeling the weight and promise of her words. The battle was won, but the war of influence, survival, and human potential in a galaxy that underestimated them was just beginning. He had passed the test of courage and ingenuity. The next challenges would be greater, but he was ready. Humans, underestimated for so long, had begun to show their true strength, and he was at the forefront. And somewhere in the vast reaches of the galaxy, enemies, allies, and observers all took note. One human had turned the tide of a battle not by power alone, but by using his mind, his courage, and his refusal to accept the impossible. And in that act, the human spirit had begun to shine brighter than any star. The aftermath of the battle left the flagship battered but not broken. Repairs were underway, crews moved efficiently through the corridors, and the hum of activity had returned. For Jace, however, the work of survival and strategy was far from over. This was no longer a mere test. It was the beginning of a responsibility he had never imagined. He had faced impossible odds and emerged alive, but the galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges that required more than courage alone. Lysera, she summoned him to the command chamber, her presence calm, her eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. The Queen's advisors, aliens and humans alike, had gathered quietly, their expressions unreadable. Jace felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. He had proven himself in action, yes, but now he was being asked to see the bigger picture, to understand how a single human could influence the future of entire sectors. "You have done well," Lysera said, her voice steady and authoritative. "You have faced enemies, saved lives, and acted when others hesitated. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy has seen your capabilities. Many will now watch you, some with respect, some with envy, and others with malice." Jace, he nodded, absorbing the gravity of her words. I understand, Your Majesty, but I'm just a human. I've done what I could. What comes next?" Lysera smiled faintly, a rare warmth breaking through her usual composure. "Next comes choice. You may continue as you have, assisting where you can. Or you may take a larger role, one that places humanity firmly within the Council of Galactic Influence. Your actions tonight have earned trust, but trust alone does not shape the future. Action does." Jace felt a surge of determination. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as insignificant and weak. He had seen the results of that underestimation firsthand. His skills, ingenuity, and courage had made a difference. If there was a chance to ensure that humans would no longer be dismissed, he would take it. "I want to help," he said firmly. "I want humanity to have a place where it matters. I don't want our species to be ignored or underestimated anymore." Lysera's eyes gleamed with approval. "Then you will begin immediately. There are sectors under threat, trade routes that must be secured, and alliances that require careful negotiation. You will act not as a subordinate, but as an advisor and strategist, a representative of humans, and a reminder that courage and creativity are valuable assets in any species." Jace, he spent the following days studying the galaxy in ways he had never imagined. He learned about the politics that governed interstellar trade, the delicate balance of power among empires, and the subtle threats that could destabilize entire regions. He met other humans who had been quietly placed in positions of influence, each of them chosen for qualities similar to his own: courage, ingenuity, and the ability to act decisively when others hesitated. The human delegation quickly became a point of fascination. Aliens who had once dismissed humanity as weak now approached cautiously, aware that humans could think outside of convention, act unpredictably, and turn seemingly hopeless situations into victories. Jace, he began to understand the true value of being human. It was not strength, size, or technology alone. It was the combination of creativity, courage, and moral resolve. Then came the message that would solidify humanity's role. A rival coalition, still smarting from their previous defeat, had begun mobilizing forces to strike at key human colonies on the edge of settled space. Their strategy was simple: overwhelm the defenders with superior numbers and cut off any hope of reinforcement. Many alien commanders believed it was impossible for humans to resist, assuming that they lacked the coordination and resources to mount a meaningful defense. Jace, he accepted the responsibility without hesitation. Using what he had learned from the Queen, from his own experience, and from countless improvisations, he began coordinating the defense. He studied the enemy's likely moves, anticipated weak points, and designed unconventional strategies that no alien mind would consider. He placed humans, allied species, and even automated systems in positions that maximized their strengths while compensating for their weaknesses. The battle that followed was intense. Enemy fleets moved with precision, expecting the human colonies to crumble quickly. But Jace, he had anticipated their every move. He orchestrated diversions, manipulated energy fields, and used gravity wells and debris to trap enemy ships. Human ingenuity, combined with courage and adaptability, turned the tide repeatedly. When an enemy cruiser broke through the outer defenses, human engineers and pilots acted with split-second coordination, forcing the enemy into traps and ultimately neutralizing the threat. Lysera, she observed quietly from orbit, her admiration evident. She had seen humans act boldly before, but this was more than courage. It was leadership, strategy, and the ability to inspire others. The human colonies, once considered vulnerable and insignificant, now stood as a testament to what humans could achieve when trusted and given the tools to act. When the battle ended, the rival coalition had suffered heavy losses, and the human colonies were secure. He returned to the flagship, exhausted but triumphant. He had not only defended lives, but had demonstrated the value of human ingenuity on a scale that even the Queen herself could not ignore. She approached him in the command chamber, her presence commanding yet calm. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have reshaped perceptions not just of humans, but of what courage and creativity can accomplish. You have proven that one species, underestimated and dismissed, can alter the balance of power in ways that cannot be ignored." He felt a quiet pride. He had acted when others hesitated. He had improvised when others followed rigid rules. And in doing so, he had reminded the galaxy that humans were not weak, not insignificant, and certainly not powerless. The Queen's words resonated deeply. "Remember this, Jace. The galaxy watches and history remembers. Humans are no longer merely observers. They have the ability to shape events, to inspire allies, and to challenge the assumptions of even the most powerful empires. You are a symbol of that potential." Over the following weeks, humanity's influence grew. Human engineers, strategists, and leaders were increasingly sought after, not just by Lysera's empire but by other factions as well. Humans became known for their ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability, qualities that could not be simulated or anticipated by even the most advanced alien minds. He continued to act as a representative and advisor, balancing strategy, diplomacy, and occasional direct intervention. Each time he faced a new challenge, he relied on the same qualities that had brought him this far: observation, ingenuity, and the refusal to accept limits imposed by fear or convention. Through it all, he remained grounded. He knew that no single human could carry the weight of the galaxy alone, but he also knew that humans had something unique to offer: the ability to act decisively, to adapt, and to inspire those around them. Even when others doubted them, humans could change the course of events through courage, creativity, and moral conviction. One evening, as he looked out from the flagship's observation deck, he reflected on how far humanity had come. They had been dismissed, underestimated, and ignored for centuries. Yet through simple courage, ingenuity, and a refusal to yield, humans had begun to carve out a place in the galaxy, a place of respect, influence, and potential. She appeared beside him, her eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. "You have done more than prove yourself," she said. "You have proven the worth of your species. The galaxy will remember this, and humans will no longer be dismissed as weak or insignificant." Jace smiled faintly. "I only did what humans do. We survive, we adapt, and we act when others hesitate. I'm glad it finally matters." The Queen's expression softened, rare for someone of her power. "It matters greatly. You and all humans who follow will shape the future in ways even I cannot predict. That is the true strength of your kind." And so, humanity began a new chapter. No longer dismissed, underestimated, or ignored, they were now a species whose courage, ingenuity, and moral strength could influence the galaxy itself. He had been the spark, a single human who acted when others hesitated, whose courage inspired not only humans but allies across the stars. The galaxy had changed, subtly but irrevocably, and in that change the truth became clear. Humans, underestimated for centuries, were capable of greatness. Not through raw power alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. As the flagship drifted through the vastness of space, he knew that challenges would continue. There would be enemies, rival factions, and unforeseen dangers. But he also knew that humanity had proven something essential: that even in a galaxy of countless stars, humans could shine brightly, unpredictably, and brilliantly, leaving their mark where none had expected. And somewhere in the council chambers, across distant sectors, and in the minds of every alien observer, the message was clear: underestimate humans at your own risk. He smiled quietly to himself. One human, one act of courage and ingenuity had begun a ripple that would shape the galaxy forever. Humanity, at last, had claimed its place among the stars, not as spectators, but as participants, as innovators, and as a force capable of changing the course of history.